Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes just for everybody to quietly join. So we are talking today about papaya and the market dynamics around papaya, specifically for European market, but not only. Before we start, a couple of good practices. So just a few things. Your microphone is muted. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We're always happy to know who is here. You can write your questions in the Q&A box so we can address them during the Q&A session. We also have our colleagues, Tiago and Griffin here to answer any questions you might have during the presentation. This session is recorded and it will be shared afterwards, as well as the presentation slides. And you can share any feedback or comments in the chat as always. So in terms of agenda for today, we will first introduce COLEAD and the Market Insights Department. In case you don't know, just a quick introduction. The Market Insights Department is the department organizing this specific webinar, so this is why we focused on it. Then we'll talk about the world supply of fresh papaya, main producing regions, types of varieties. Then we'll talk about Papaya Trade, and we'll end with a small dashboard demonstration about information you can find on papaya on our COLEAD resources. And we'll finish with a Q&A. So we're going to start right away, and I'm going to leave the floor to my colleague Tiago, who will introduce you to COLEAD quickly and the Market Insights Department.
Thank you, Alexandra. So without further ado, let's start with the introduction of COLEAD itself. So as you can see on the following slide, COLEAD is known as the Committee of Liaison for Entrepreneurship, Agriculture and Development. We are a private and non-profit professional association that has existed already for more than 50 years. In the past, we were known as COLEACP. And for our mission, well, it is to implement activities through various and different programs so we can enhance agriculture's contribution to sustainable development goals. Now, our mission and vision are to growing people, and it focuses mostly on developing individuals because we feel that they are the key to agricultural progress. As for our actions, well, they aim to strengthen the skills of these individuals, but also their organizations, so we can improve their capabilities. And we try to enable these groups and others so they can sustainably access national, but also regional markets. Now, our work in this case is guided by the implementation of our values, which include the commitment, continuous improvement, diversity, performance, and also humanity. And we work and offer a network of businesses, professional organizations, experts, which are all committed to this inclusive and sustainable agriculture. This network represents around 500 members, so it's a very big network. Now, COLEAD is known to being a toolbox. We design, manage, and implement development programs, one of them being FFM+. Who do we work with? Well, in this case, our primary targets are companies that market products in national and regional markets, but we also collaborate with businesses, service providers, training centers, research institutes, and even public services. COLEAD, in this case, operates in more than 50 countries, mostly in the sub-Saharan Africa and Caribbean, as well as the Pacific. All of that mainly in the fresh fruit and vegetable sector. However, recently, actually, we have, and our activities have expanded to new countries and agri-food sectors, which now increases the number of target countries up to 140. Now, if you're curious to know more information, we always invite you to visit our website. So moving on to our research center, The COLEAD Research Center is actually built on more than 25 years of experience and knowledge. Initially, the focus was mostly on food safety, but since then we have expanded to include many different other topics. This has led to the development of cascading training methods, which tries to link external experts to the internal resources of companies. Now, due to that, COLEAD has received the ISO certification for its training management system. And it also demonstrates the commitment that we have to the skill development through education, learning, and research. This standard is suitable for training organizations of any size or method, which again aligns with the COLEAD's vision of growing people. Now, COLEAD shares its resources by publishing a training catalog covering many different themes. And these resources are developed over 20 years and mostly freely accessible. So there's some available on request and reserved for COLEAD members, but mostly is available for everyone and freely. The main available resources include the e-library, the e-learning platform, the statistics page, which will be showcased by my colleague Griffin, the regulations page, which is via the AgriInfo program, the self-assessment tool, the news page, and much more. Now, moving on to our holistic approach. In this case, COLEAD takes a holistic approach to developing its programs, and it's centered around three key pillars, as you can see here in the slide. So the first one is facilitating market access, the second one being strengthening value chain, and the third one is leveraging impact. These three pillars are carried out through various different departments in the COLEAD organization. The first is carried out by the Market Insights Department under the first pillar, and it provides essential resources such as market studies, market profiles, and statistical data in order to help understand market access. In this case, the Market Insights Department tries to support with its research into new generations of phytosanitary products, innovation in production techniques, and ongoing regulatory monitoring to track changes in standards and regulations. As for the second pillar, which is known as value chain strengthening, it focuses mostly on building capacity through technical assistance. This support is delivered both online and on the ground, and it also includes professional training, working directly with companies and their teams to strengthen their skills and operations. Now, finally, the third pillar, known as the leveraging impact, it emphasizes on showcasing business successes, and this is done through webinars organized in collaboration with the PAFO in Africa, the ICA in the Caribbean, and the PFON in the Pacific. But it also involves participation in research programs via the networks and alliance department and facilitating business growth through the access to finance department. Now, all these three pillars are supported by a set of digital tools and resources, and these are provided through a comprehensive toolbox, which is available not only to beneficiaries of COLEAD, but also to all stakeholders in both the public and private sector, whether they are COLEAD members or not. Now, finally, let's present the Market Insights Department. In this case, our department currently consists of 5 people, and we collaborate with a network of independent experts as well as the expertise of our members. We try to collect and cross-reference data, which we then store on a dedicated platform that allows the creation of interactive dashboards, but also market studies. We follow the latest development in the agri-food sector and share information and analysis gathered from trade shows as well as social media. We produce publications and reports on various aspects of trade and supply chain, which then we present during webinars such as this one. Now, if you're interested in future webinars of sorts, we will present it at the end of this webinar. Now, finally, we transform this data into actionable insights and support business development by helping companies access new markets and facilitating meetings with new clients or suppliers. So now that you have a good understanding of COLEAD's operations as well as the Market Insights Department, I will pass the word to Alexandra, which will now present to you the market of papaya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tego. Very good introduction of COLEAD and the Market Insights Department. So indeed, now let's talk about the papaya market. So first of all, we just wanted to share a little bit that this webinar, sorry, is based on a study that we made on papaya from West Africa and studying the markets of the regions and the European markets. We we make this presentation today a lot broader than just papaya from West Africa. So if you're not from West Africa, don't worry. It's still very interesting for you. This study, if you want to read more details, is available freely on the e-library, so you can always check it out. So let's start with the world supply of fresh papaya. You know that papaya is a tropical fruit, that it grows on semi-woody arborescent plants up to 8 meters high. Usually, an industrial orchard has between 2,000 and 2,500 plants per hectare, and each plant requires between 150 and 200 millimeters of water per month. This is important because it could be a problem in the dry season if there's no correct irrigation. Although papaya are large fruits, they are oval or pear-shaped, and they can weigh from as little as 200 grams to over 2 or 3 kilos. They are still considered to be berries. They can measure between 15 and 45 centimeters in length and between 10 and 30 centimeters in diameter. So they can be really big. When ripe, you can see on the photo here on the picture that the skin turns from green to more yellow when it's more ripen, right? Um, in terms of world varieties, I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can find more information in the study if you want. But to sum up, there are different varieties of papaya. They are different slightly in flavor, but mostly in size. So basically, you have two types of varieties, the small ones that are between 200 and 700 grams, and the large varieties that are a bigger size from 900 grams to 3 kilos and maybe more. So very quickly, the best known variety is the solo variety or Hawaiian papaya, which weighs between 300 and 500 grams. Um, the flesh can be red or orange. It has a high sugar content and a pronounced flavor. The second variety here, the sunrise or solo sunrise, has red-pink flesh and weighs about the same. It's also a small fruit, and this is the most widely produced variety in the world. And then you have the golden variety that has more of a yellow skin, hence the name golden. In the large varieties, the best known is the Formosa variety. It can weigh up to 3 kilos. It's the main variety in terms of a large papaya on the European market. And you have the green color of the skin that changes to yellow when the fruit is ripe. A little less known papaya is the Maradol that you see here. It's also called Mexican papayas. They are mainly grown in South America. They are large fruits weighing above 1.5 kilograms, and the flesh is more like salmon type of color. Then you have the last variety here that has also a very long shape, and they can weigh up to 1.8 kilos. In terms of world production, according to the FAO, the world production in 2023 was around 15 million tons. And there's an average annual growth rate of 1% in the last 10 years. So we're talking about a stable, slow growth of papaya production in the world. The main region that produce are Latin America, Asia and Latin America. So the growth has been quite stable in most of the production regions, but there is a slight increase in smaller producing regions such as North America and Oceania, for example, because it's smaller volumes, so an increase of production is easier to achieve. In terms of country, India is the leading producer. There's over 5 million tons produced there every year, meaning around 1/3 of the global production in the world of papaya. It is followed by the Dominican Republic, Indonesia, Mexico, and Brazil. So Brazil and India have a very slight drop in production over the years, while you can see Dominican Republic, Mexico having higher annual growth rate for their papaya production. The main suppliers, so the main exporting countries are Mexico, Guatemala, Brazil, Malaysia, and the United States. And as you can see here in brown, you have the Latin America that is actually accounting for 75% of the global exports. So it plays quite an important role, as you can see. So it's quite interesting because India actually represents 1/3 of the production of papaya in the world. But in terms of exports, Latin America, mainly with Brazil and Mexico, and most France represent 3/4 of the world exports of papaya. In terms of global trade, we know that the production is slightly increasing, but we can see that the trade is more stagnating. Actually, papaya is quite a niche import market. It's mostly for ethnic population. It's a fruit that is mostly consumed locally. So we know that the papaya exports are only representing 1.4% of the world fresh fruit trade, which is very niche. Papaya is also, so like I said, intended for local consumption. So only 2.6% of the world production of papaya is exported, so it's very small volumes. And these exports have been quite stable over the last 10 years. The exports go mainly to the United States. As you can see on the graph here on the right, the United States represent more than half of the destination market. And for example, the European Union is only 13% of the destination market. We have Asia, then that accounts for 10% of imports, Latin America 6%, and the Middle East 5%. And if you look at countries, yeah, you have the United States, then El Salvador, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, Canada, Portugal, Germany, etc. In terms of mode of transports, it's also an interesting point here because we know that air transport is the main mode of transport for papaya. As we can see here on the graph, 97% of papaya are transported by air. There have been attempts to transport the papaya by boat, but until now, most of them have failed because there's a shelf life problems, and also, for example, in the EU, there's a ban on some active substance to combat some disease. Therefore, the fruit has to be cut too early, and that also alters the taste a little when it reaches the consumer, and the quality is not as good as when it's transported by air. So unfortunately, sea transport is a good way of reducing costs and the carbon footprints. And there's also some importers that would like to transport the papaya by sea from nearby suppliers. For example, there are for now trials going on in Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia for the North American market. But it's not certain yet that we can have the quality of the products that would be sufficient. But it is a trend today, and it's important to know that you do have some fear and some importers that are trying to stay away from air freight, which would be a challenge for this product. We're going to focus now a little bit on the European market. It's the second market after North America for importing papaya, and this market has been importing steadily around 40,000 tons since 2015 each year. So we did a little exercise here to compare the volumes of papaya imports with other tropical fruits. The volumes are quite low compared to other fruits. As we know, like I said, it's a niche market. So for example, there would be around 450,000 tons of mango in 2022, more than 600,000 tons of avocado, and so on. But for papaya, in 2022, there was 36,000 tons. So we compared 36 to 400, 600,000 tons. So it remains a niche market. But there would be a couple of factors that encourage development of tropical fruits in general, including papaya. So we've already talked about sea shipping. Hopefully new technologies would maintain the quality all the way to the consumer. There's also a demand for organic products, for example, and the development of new outlets on the European market. The European papaya imports have grown by 2.8%, as you can see here, every year in the last 10 years. And there's just, despite the onset of the COVID pandemic in 2020, as you can see here, the papaya imports in Europe are globally increasing. We see a little increase in 2021 and another drop in 2020, but the overall trend is positive. So who are the main importers? Like we said, there's a general increase in imports in both value and volume, but there's also a slight fall in 2022 compared with 2021. And you can see here, all of the importers except Portugal have a slight drop in 2022. We know also that the value is actually rising faster than the volume. And why is that? Probably because of the high air freight costs. Papaya are mainly transported by air, so the cost of air freight and the changes in this cost would affect quite a lot the value of the papaya and the price. Also because, as we're gonna see in the next slide, Brazil has a large share of the market and little competition. Anything affecting Brazilian production and exports to the EU will have a direct effect on price and value of this product. So in terms of main importers in the EU, we can see that it is Portugal, Germany, Spain, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands that are the main destination. Portugal is the biggest one, with approximately 12,000 tons in 2022. So almost one third of the papaya imported into the EU go to Portugal. They are benefiting from good trade relations with Brazil. And we can see also Germany with 5.6 thousand tons. Spain also around the same value in 2022, and the same volumes in 2022. It's good to know that if you actually take into account also trade within the EU, so countries exporting papaya in their country and then re-exporting it to other countries around, that would represent around 15,000 tons. So there's a lot of countries for which it's not the end market. Those are hubs that are going to export then the papaya to other neighboring countries. For example, the Netherlands, that's really the case. The Netherlands is not an end market. It's one of the key players in the distribution of exotic products in Europe, in all of Europe. But on the other hand, Portugal, for example, that is more a end market. So you would see there's more consumption of papaya in Portugal, for example. Let's look at the main exporters now. So if you look at this graph that is showing the main suppliers of papaya to the EU, you see in dotted line here it's the total imported, and then you see the main countries with the different colors. So it's very obvious here that Brazil is the main suppliers with more than 95% of the papaya imports coming from Brazil. And you can also see the two lines coming closer together throughout the years. So Brazil is also gaining share on other countries. Some African countries do have a plan to increase their presence, like Ghana and Angola. They want to offer more competitive products in terms of quality and price. We can see also countries such as Ecuador here in light gray that has lost a lot of shares in the supplying of papaya in the EU market. In terms of variety, so we know there's two main sizes of papaya, the small ones and the large ones. Both are sold to the EU market. In terms of smaller varieties, the solo, sunrise, and golden are the three of them are represented in the EU. There are usually between 6 to 8 fruits per box, and larger papaya are more like 3 to 4 fruits per box when shipping to the EU. The solo and golden varieties are really the main sold on the EU market, but there are some small imports of sunrise that we can see available also on the market. So both sides are consumed in Europe, but depending on the national market, it can be different preference. For example, the Formosa variety, so the big variety, is often eaten in Germany, while the golden one is more popular in Eastern Europe. There's also a shift in the preference because in the past, the European market only wanted solo varieties because there was more like modest households in Northern Europe that would prefer smaller portions. But the market is now opening up to larger varieties, such as the Formosa, because of their flavor and their good quality. So Brazil does supply mainly two varieties, the Golden and the Formosa. They only transported by air, obviously. We can see also Mexico with the Maradol variety, which is the Mexican papaya, as we call it also. Thailand is also exporting with the Red Lady, so also big size, larger fruit. So to conclude a little bit on the European market, we would like to go through a few characteristics. So if you expect to export to the European market, you have maybe a better understanding of the market. So the papaya would be available all year round with a peak in Easter and the Christmas period. We there are some periods where also the quality is better depending on the peak season of the producing countries. So Brazil, for example, produces both golden as a small fruit from March to July and the Formosa, the large fruit, from July to November. Ghana produces papaya year-round with a high season September and March and a low season in April and August. Nevertheless, the seasonality depends on the rain. So now with all the climate change, the rain patterns change. And for example, in 2022, Ghana had a peak season between June and December, so it changed. This could also be an opportunity for some countries to provide a peak season different than, for example, Brazil, as the main supplier. There's a lot of trend of sustainability in healthy food. So there is an increasing interest in Europe for organic fruit and vegetables, for fruit in general, and the market for organic papaya is relatively small because it's a niche market in a niche market. But this trend might be also accelerated by the European Union different strategies and politics. There is an increase also in the consumers to buy ready to eat. So they want their papayas, right? Sweet, uh, ready to consume. Mini papayas, so very small papayas, are also very popular. If they have a longer shelf life, they are suitable for the convenience segment. Like said, it can be sold freshly cut as a healthy snack. It's something very popular in Europe. It's also important to note that the importers actually play a very key role in the European papaya supply chain. They distribute to main supermarket chains, both discounter or high-end retailer, that are also actually importing papaya directly. So we have two main types of importers, the supermarkets and the specialized importers. So for the supermarkets, like larger importers dominate the supply for larger supermarkets, and they can be good partners for papaya suppliers to enter supermarket chains. You also have the specialized importers that focus on wholesale, that they focus on specific fruit categories or niche market like organic. And these are actually the traditional historic papaya importers. As we've seen, papaya are mostly consumed by ethnic populations, so going for a specialized importer that sells to ethnic shops might be a very important partnership. The last point is that the retail prices widely vary on the retail type and the market. We have prices that strongly depend on air freight rates, like we said before, and too high air freight rates can make the trade of papaya almost impossible and very challenging. The last thing we wanted to note is that papayas, as you know, have a very thin skin. So it's very important to pack and protect the products correctly in order to maintain good quality throughout the transport and the supply chain. So you can see here on the image, for example, the papayas are all um, protected individually with foam or with paper to protect them. They are also generally delivered in 3 to 4 kilo boxes and yeah, individually protected. The last point on the European market for trading characteristics and certifications. So papaya must have a phytosanitary certificate guaranteeing that they are first properly inspected and free from quarantine pests in compliance with the phytosanitary requirements of the EU regulation. You must also ensure that the SPS competent authorities in your country have taken the necessary steps to export. So they must have submitted a dossier to the EU in order to obtain authorization to export to European markets. And for further information, we will share in the chat now, if you are interested, we have a guideline made on the papaya export to Europe. So it's like, yeah, guidelines on the exportations of guava, annona, and papaya to the EU. You have all of the information that you need to do that, all of the requirements that are needed from the EU. So like we said, the SPS certification and other requirements. We also wanted to highlight that the European Union has set maximum residual levels, so MRLs, for pesticides in and on papayas. The levels must be safe for consumers and must be as low as possible. And if the papaya exceeds these limits, they are withdrawn from the market. So obviously, it's something to be very careful about. Several countries, such as the United Kingdom and Germany, have set even stricter rules than the EU. So sometimes it's important also to go to national regulations. In terms of private standards, we see a lot that European importers and retailers generally prefer certification schemes such as SMETA, Global Gap, GRASP, Rainforest Alliance. And the most common certification for fresh papaya is actually Global Gap, which covers the agricultural production process from before the plant is on the ground to the product. It focuses on food safety, on the environment, on the labor conditions, and on product quality. And this has become a standard requirement for most European supermarkets. The fair trade certification is also quite common for this type of fresh fruit. And Fair Trade International does have a fair trade premium for fresh papaya. Papayas for the European market must comply with the general marketing standard of regulation. They are currently no specific EU or UNECE marketing standards for papaya, but there is a worldwide standard existing set up by the Codex that you can see here on the left. We added a link so you can directly go see the Codex standard. And also there exist an explanatory brochures published by the OECD on international standards for fruit and veg, including papaya. So I'm going to conclude here the part on the trade and EU markets. And just before we go to the live demo of the dashboard and some interesting credit resource for papaya, I just wanted to highlight again, so we have those two documents. the market profile on fresh papaya from West Africa to the region to European markets that you can um, read in more detail if you are interested. And this guideline document on export of fresh papaya to the EU that has all of the plant health rules from the European Union and all of the requirements that you need to export papaya. So I will leave now the floor to my colleague Griffin, who will introduce you to the dashboard and a few other coded resources that could be useful for papaya trade.
All right. Thank you, Alex, for that insightful presentation. I'll just share my screen just to, is it visible, Alex?
No, not yet. Yes,
No?
all good.
Okay. Now, when you visit the COLEAD homepage or the website, on your right, you should be able to see different icons. So there's one on the e-learning analytics and the e-library. So you might be asking yourself, where exactly can you find the study on the papaya? So when you click on the icon for the e-library, and then you scroll down, there is a search bar, and you can actually type the keywords or use the various filters on categories or thematics and the languages depending on which language you speak. Now, in this case, we want the papaya study. So when you type in the keyword, you can be able to see the guideline that Alex was demonstrating and also the study. So you can download it and read it on your own. It's free. Okay. Now I'll take you through how we go through the website, the COLEAD analytics page. So back to the COLEAD main page. On the analytics icon. So there are you will find the dashboards. So there's a description of the market insights. And you'll see various themes that contain different dashboards. So there's a theme on the EU, UK, World Trade in Agri-Food Products, and there are dashboards on the World Trade in Agri-Food, dashboard on World Trade in Agri-Food Products, EU and UK, exports, the imports of organic products, under the theme World Agri-Food Production and Trade, with a focus on ACP, the different dashboards that focus on agri-food production, on exports of agri-food and livestock and fisheries, and imports. There are other thematics on sanitary and the other thematics on interceptions and notifications, and also on the phytosanitary interceptions for different products. For this specific case, I'll demonstrate one of the dashboards under the World Food Production and Trade. So when you look at the second dashboard and you click on it, so I'll just put it on full screen mode. So this is the home page for the dashboard on exports of agri-food, livestock, and fisheries. So you can be able to set up the report. So if you want, or you can go directly to the report. For example, when you want to set up on the report, you click on the orange button, and on the configuration page, you're able to see various filters. So you can either decide to, for example, if you want to see the exports of sub-Saharan Africa, and maybe a specific country in sub-Saharan Africa, let's say Madagascar. So let's do Madagascar. You can type in the name. And then you can search the importing country or the importing region, for example, let's say the European Union and the UK, and you can adjust the period. For example, you want between 2012 and 2022, and you can adjust the units, whether you want them in volume or value, and the values either in euro or USD, and then you can click to go directly to the report. So on the report page, you can see the trade between sub-Saharan Africa, between Madagascar and the EU and UK. So if you want a specific product, let's say vanilla. So it's under this category. You can specifically go to vanilla. So you can see the trend over the years between 2012 to 2022. And of course, you can see the exporting country is Madagascar. And you can see the value in terms of per country. So there's France, there's Germany, and so on and so forth. You can also change to view, you can see the volume, sorry, not the value. You can also change to see the volume or the value. So you can see the trend for the value over the years, and you can see the specific importing countries and the value for each country. You can reset them. You can reset the whole dashboard if you want. And if you also want to go to back to the homepage, there's an icon labeled home, and you can search for any other product. For example, let's say you want to search for, I don't know, any other type of product. Let's for example, Ghana, and you want to see the exports of Ghana to EU 27 and the UK between 2013, and you want them in volume and the value in US dollars. Now you can go and look at the specific. You can go directly to the dashboard, and you can see the trend of exports over the years. You can see the main importing countries, and you can see the total value of exports to the EU 27 and the UK in terms of volume and also the value. And you can filter by specific product. So yeah, it's for example, let's say you wanted maybe fresh strawberries. Sorry, there are no strawberries in Ghana. But you can search for a specific product that you are interested in, and you can be able to tell more about the information, more about the countries you're exporting to, and so on and so forth. So that's it from me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rufin, for this very interesting demonstration. So, if anybody has questions, please add them in the Q&A box or in the chat. For now, it seems that everything is very clear, so that's a good it's a good thing, let's say. So, while anybody thinks if they have any question, I'm just gonna share a couple of more information. We added a lot of useful links on the PowerPoint that you can check once you have the presentation. So you have the link to the COLEAD website, to the analytics page that Griffin just demonstrated, the e-library, also the e-learning with all of our training activities and courses, the Agrinfo platform for regulatory updates that you can check. So lots of resources at COLEAD. We also have next webinars in this type of format. So the next webinar is on June 10 on all of the insights that we have gathered from the trade fairs this year so far. The Market Insight department, one of the objectives are always to be informed on all of the trends and all of the innovations happening. And if you want to be informed too, you can just follow along this 45 minutes, 1 hour webinar that will give you all of the latest updates. As there is no more questions, I'm just gonna say thank you for everybody to join us. Thank you for listening. I hope this was interesting. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any other question. There's still time to put some question in the chat. What is the main page used to start the searches that Griffin demonstrated? It is the COLEAD website, actually. It's a collead.link website. Sorry. This is where you can start all of the resources from, yes, collead.link. What page on the website? Wait, I'm just gonna share my screen also. I can show you again. So if you are familiar with the COLEAD website, you would recognize it. Yes, so now you see it. So it's just the COLEAD.link. It's the main page of COLEAD that you see here. And on the buttons on the right, you have all of the resources from COLEAD. So we have an e-learning platform, we have the analytics page that Griffin demonstrated with all of the dashboards and statistics. Then the e-library that gathers all of the documents, studies, etc. Then you have the regulations, so all of the updates in terms of European regulation changes, because there's quite a few changes very often. And there's also a crop protection database on all of the products that are accepted by the EU and things like that. So yeah, this would be, I hope this answers to your question. But again, those links are going to be shared in the presentation. And yeah, I'm gonna close here. Thank you very much for everyone to join, and uh, I wish you all a very good day and a very good end of the week. Thank you.